Welcome back for yet another installment of Fellowship of the Rink, episode 8 to be precise. With me, as always, Joe Smith of The Athletic, coming to you with the insider info on your Minnesota Wild and Gophers hockey with, as always, some hints of craft beer, whiskey, Lord of the Rings factoids. Maybe we'll talk about our dogs. Doesn't matter. Joe, you're out in Colorado, which is generally much better than being in Minnesota.
It's great, good craft beer scene. I wish I was here for multiple days where I could go on a hike or get up there. Just got in yesterday and was just a lot of work, and we did our interview for our podcast, which will be out. Logan Cooley, so that was great. But one of my favorite places in the States to be is in Colorado. Just one heck of a playground, and like I said, just really great beer scene as well.
That might have to be something we plan for in the future when there's we know there's an Avalanche game, but then you've got a couple days in between for travel. I just happen to conveniently plan a trip out to Colorado as well, and we just cruise through some of the breweries and get some content out of that. I don't hate that idea.
The live pod, that'd be great. Yeah.
All right.
We do it.
We'll table that. That sounds like a winner. I don't know. I guess we'll just kick off with what's topical. Everyone, obviously at home, Frozen Four, St. Paul. Before we talk about that, we should probably just address some positives for the Gophers, being that there's not much else we can talk about related to the Frozen Four with them. It happened right after we recorded last week, but Jimmy Snuggerud is officially staying for his junior year. I know your colleague sat down and went through this in depth with him, Jeremy Rutherford. But I know you had a chance to check in with him, with Faber. We even talked to Cooley about it a little bit. But anything you want to touch on from Jimmy's decision to play his junior year?
Well, I think we had him on the pod a month ago, and you could tell he was kind of torn at that time, right? He wasn't like, oh, yeah, this is it for me. I know it's it. He legitimately torn. And I talked to Brock Faber about this because Faber, a good close friend of Snuggerud, and he was one of the guys that Snuggerud called that Saturday night after they lost in the region, and he's one of the guys he was kind of leaning on. And Faber is a great example, a guy who said the best decision ever made was coming back for his junior year at the Gophers, even though they did lose in the Frozen Four championship game. He just kind of gave him, he's like, NHL is going to be here for you no matter what. He knew that Snuggerud just was frustrated with the end of his season, probably didn't play quite as dominant of a role as he thought he would play. And not winning a championship as well. So in the athletic story on Monday, we talked about that and what Faber told Snuggerud and how that affected his decision. But you can tell, even listening to Cooley in our interview, which people will be able to hear soon, just how much he waxed poetically about his time with the Gophers and how much being a kid was so much fun and how the grind of a schedule in the NHL is just a whole different world. So I think Snuggerud made a good decision there. And look at the top line they're going to have next year with Wood transferring over, Oliver Moore we saw this year. I don't know if it'll be as good as Cooley, Nyes, and Snuggerud, but a Snuggerud, Oliver Moore, and Wood line, that could be one fun thing to watch in Ray Rouge next year.
Yeah, and it is a matter of experience too, right? Because two of the guys on that line that was arguably the best line I've seen in college hockey for a long time. Maybe BC's given him a little bit of a run this year, but Snuggerud and Cooley, both freshmen. Now we have a junior Jimmy Snuggerud who's gone through the ups and downs. Matthew Wood, who is no slouch in his own right, 15th overall pick of the Predators and has a couple years under his belt with UConn. And Oliver Moore, who we saw really good flashes this past year. It was very clearly a freshman year. And I think he's going to come in with a little bit different look. And it could be another one of those lines that is interesting. Do you see any fallout from this, though? Are there players that we expect to depart or make the jump? There's been some people speculating on, would Hughlin or Pitlick jump now? I don't see that, but
I don't know. There's still spots up there in the lineup, I think, and a lot of guys, how close that group is, it's hard to see those guys leaving. I know Carl Fish is in the transfer portal, it looked like, so that's a different wrinkle only on the blue line. But I think Minnesota is pretty well set up next year with the young guys that we even talked to the middle stats, right? And they're still going to be there. So a pretty good core to build around, and I think losing can be a great teacher to teams, and this year was no exception. And no matter what, this Frozen Four is going to be really good. I'm really excited to come and take a 6:30 a.m. flight out of Denver before this posting to get back to St. Paul to cover the entire Frozen Four, following BU, other teams around it. So we'll have coverage there, but I'm dreading the 4 a.m. wake-up call, but I'm excited for the weekend.
Yeah, you just happen to be around all of the Frozen Fours too. Like Tampa, your old stomping grounds. Now it's here in St. Paul. And I mean, get in nice and close with a great team in all rights, but obviously talking about the guy who's basically the de facto first overall pick this year. Please don't be Chicago. Please don't. But I mean, that's going to be cool to get an inside look from a different perspective, where BU's not a team you've necessarily been plugged in with as much, where Gophers, you already had a little bit of familiarity going in and had a little bit of the track. Yeah.
I mean, last year when I did that behind the scenes, kind of embedded with the Gophers, I knew of them, but I wasn't around their team a lot during the year. So I kind of did still parachute in, even though it was the local home team. And I really felt I learned, even in those 4 or 5 days, just a lot about that group and a culture of a program and kind of the history. And that's what I'm excited about for BU as well. Just to see the last title was 2009, and they've had a lot of really big time alumni come through there. McAvoy's supporting them from Boston. You have Shattenkirk. You have obviously some big name Eichel. So aside from the big names, I think it's just one of those historic blue blood programs that everyone kind of wants to know more about, and looking forward to exploring that. And also I'm going to be around other teams too. Michigan, my alma mater, DU, Denver has been a top program for quite a while here. Perennial team that could go for the Frozen Four. And I think everyone would love to see a BC BU matchup in the final on Saturday. It doesn't always work out that way. Look at last year with Quinnipiac and Minnesota, but I'm really curious how the crowds are going to look at the X, right? Like they have teams that travel well. They're no Minnesota teams, but after Thursday's games, like I'm hoping this will be the crowd there for Saturday, no matter who's in it.
You got to think so, but it will be interesting to see. And it is a little bit different market too. Like Tampa is a destination for sure, but it's not like you're drawing in the same local interest as you are in Minnesota. So it will be interesting to see where that falls. And we've got the Hobey Baker excitement all around too. I know right next door, River Center, 5:00 on Friday. Some big nominees. We've got Cutter Gauthier, which apparently that's controversial somehow because people think that it should be Will Smith. I think you can argue it either way. Pretty bad problem to have having two guys like that. Oh, wait, Gophers last year. Then you have Jackson Blake of North Dakota and aforementioned Macklin Celebrini for BU. I'm leaning towards it being Celebrini's trophy to lose, but we never know how this is going to go.
Yeah, I thought it was really close last year too, and it was. And maybe the two Minnesota guys split votes or whatever. That could have been part of it. But, I think for a guy like Celebrini, who's had all the hype going in, and to deliver on that hype right away in a big-time way, like it would be hard, I think, just for him to lose that. But, obviously you can mention the other two finalists are really good and on really strong teams as well. But I think one of those is almost like the Bedard situation in the Calder. Like I think people see a guy live up to the hype all season long under the microscope, and given no reason why he shouldn't lose it. Is there a Brock Faber in that bunch that can beat him? I don't know, but it'll be fascinating to see kind of his final days as a college kid before he goes off to be one of the best young players in the National Hockey League.
For sure. And for those wondering too, West 7th, if you're out and about, whether it's pre-gaming, post-game, or you're not even going to the games, but want to get out in the action, Hobey Baker Award is on display at Tom Reed's Hockey City Pub on West 7th. I know they've got a couple events going there as well, at least one signing from a former Hobey winner. So check that out. But let's switch gears. Minnesota Wild. things to talk about. Likely not the direction of the team in the immediate future, just that if they lose in regulation tonight, season is over. If they win, outside chance maybe, but we're probably counting down our days. But on the transfer portal discussion, Charlie Stramel, official, going to Michigan State. I'm thrilled he's out of Wisconsin. I'll leave it there and pass over to you.
Yeah, like not being on the ground in Wisconsin, it's hard to tell like what went wrong. Like clearly there was an issue with maybe some of the prospects, NHL drafted prospects, that didn't get the playing time that they wanted there. And Hastings has every right to run the program the way he wants to, and his job is to win. So he plays the more experienced players, but it'll be a nice fresh start, I think, for Charlie Stramel. I think there's a lot of eyeballs and pressure on him being a first-round pick for the Wild, and who they might have passed up for him. And so I think it's unfair to judge a guy at age 20-something years old at this point. But maybe at Michigan State, a really good program, and maybe he gets a better fit, plays more than just third or fourth line winger minutes, and on the power play can show what he can do. I don't think this will make him a Hobey Baker finalist next year, but I think that he'll be a chance to play regular minutes in a meteor role, and maybe get that kind of a fresh look that can maybe rejuvenate him in his career, and see where that takes him on the kind of developmental path. But I think we knew this was coming. It wasn't a huge surprise, but be interesting to watch kind of his next step there, because they still have the Wild haven't given up on this kid, right? It's not been that long, so I think having a center of that size can still be a very valuable player in the coming years.
And again, we see the development curves all over the map. Give him a minute, please. But reason he didn't play, I mean, Joe, I don't know about you, but there's plenty of kids when they're younger that'll go out and get fake IDs so they can go out to the bars. I think Charlie Stramel's issue is that he couldn't find anyone to get him a fake AARP card. I know Hastings is pretty keen on that. Maybe that, or if you've got like the Denny's early bird special, like punch card, and you have enough punches, he lets you play. But it's a good fit for him in Michigan State too. It's going to be quieter. There's not going to be as much noise around him, especially like if you think about having him transfer to the Gophers, like just more eyes and scrutiny on him playing for the hometown team. But also the familiarity there with Adam Nightingale, which we're going to see that, I think, for the next year or so here, where there's players that maybe played for him in the development program that are going to flock towards him when they aren't happy in their current spots. But I'm interested to see what he can do. Fresh slate, but now it's on him. Now you got to go out there, put in the work, and show us, hey, it wasn't my fault that I was getting benched in Wisconsin. So it'll be fun to track. Minnesota Wild fans, Kirill Kaprizov hits 40 goals yet again. What's everything about?
I always felt he was a top 10, 12 player in the world. And, this year, I know he had maybe a brief moment of struggles where he had an injury in into December, but look at the percentage of points and he was involved in this year since he came back from injury January 13th. It's close to 50%. It's like pretty incredible. And I think if the Wild had magically made the playoffs this year, he would have been on my Hart Trophy ballot. It'd probably have been like 4 or 5 because you have 3 guys that's going to get 120 points, right? Or 130 points. Like he would be number 1, but considering how much of a one-line team this has been all year long, and that'll be the big question going into next year beyond the goaltending and special teams, is how can they get some other secondary scoring going, because it felt like if they didn't have Kaprizov and his line going, that they were going to score at all. So, but clearly it's impressive to see Kaprizov play like that. And Sunday in the meaningless game, I guess, to all intents and purposes, and he's flying around like crazy and 2 goals and assists. And I think it's such a great example for other guys who are maybe look at this as 5 games left before a long summer. You could tell this guy really wants to win. You could tell this guy probably a little frustrated how the season went, injuries and everything else aside. He'll get paid no matter what in 2 years. I think the Wild plan and hope for him to stay, but you've got to show that there's a team around him that can win games and be in the playoffs. And so that'll be really interesting for me to see the next couple of years. And because I do think he likes it here. I do think he likes Minnesota. I think he feels comfortable and, is treated well. So I think but he wants to win, just like a lot of the top players do. So great year for Kirill Kaprizov. A couple guys, Joel Eriksson next, a tremendous year. A few guys up there. There's some really good bright spots. Marco Rossi, a Masterton Trophy nominee from our local chapter. We mentioned Charlie Stramel. Don't give up on him too soon. Like a year ago, people thinking Marco Rossi was a bust, and here he is scoring 21 goals and in the Calder Trophy finalist conversation. Some bright spots on the organization, like him and Faber and everything else. Jesper Wallstedt, we'll talk about him in a second. But there's a lot of stuff around the middle of the lineup and of the D pairs that could really use a big step up next year if the Wild are going to be back in the playoffs.
For sure. And continuing on the track of this past Sunday, I'm sure Wild fans are probably a little bit too obnoxious, but the fact that the Blackhawks did not score a goal, you mentioned it before, Jesper Wallstedt with the shutout, and pretty much every Minnesota Wild rookie factored in on the score sheet. I don't know. It seems all but cemented that Brock Faber should be taking home the Calder Trophy now.
Well, if you judge it based on that game, for sure. I mean, I've been no secret. I wrote the stories the past couple of weeks. Like, I believe he has a very strong chance for the Calder, and as a voter, I can't say who I'll be voting for, but there's a very strong chance that Brock Faber will be number one on my ballot when it's over with. But I totally understand and realize that there's a good chance that Connor Bedard wins the trophy, and it shouldn't send Wild fans crazy like it's the biggest snake job in the world. Like, he'd be deserving as well. But I think just seeing both Rossi score and then Faber, the incredible assist on Kaprizov's goal at the end there, definitely shows like night to night how much of an impact he makes. So that's, you've seen the cornerstones of the franchise going forward with him and Rossi and Wallstedt, the number one potentially coming up here in net. So I was happy for him too to get that experience after giving up 7 goals against Dallas. And I know it's a much weaker team in Chicago, and they're set him up for better success there. He didn't really get the 3 high danger chances they allowed the whole game in front of him, but still, like, he feels like he's settled in. He can, even in practice and stuff, he feels more comfortable, like he belongs and doesn't have that 7-goal debut kind of anchoring in his mind. So clearly a big step for him, and we'll probably see him play this weekend in California too.
And I talked to you about this offline, but you just know that this is positioning perfectly for all of the conjecture over the summer of, okay, we saw him against like one of the best teams in the league and he got shelled. We saw him against one of the worst teams in the league and he looked incredible. What's real, right? And it shouldn't matter when he's the age he is and has had as little NHL experience as he has, but brace yourself. That's going to be a lot of the talk this summer. It
will be. And like, if he beats the Sharks on this weekend, like, will that all of a sudden change anything? No matter if he starts four more games, like he makes the Sharks against LA, whatever, but they needed to get another look at him. They needed to get another look and see how he responded. It's hard to judge a goalie based upon 3 NHL stars, but they're judging him on the last 2 years of development of how he's responded and how he's played in Iowa, and the mental makeup and how he's kind of dealt with everything. So it will be a fascinating debate. We'll write about a lot this summer, them deciding on their future in net. Marc-Andre Fleury has said he potentially wants to play another year, and most likely, ideally, he said, would be in Minnesota if he does. So the Wild will have to decide if they bring him back, if they just kind of roll back the same tandem and count on Gustafsson having a bounce back after this year, which was a disappointing one from his breakout season. And then, seeing how the year goes, and you always have Wallstedt in your back pocket, and seeing how he kind of develops there more and plays more minutes. You want him to play as much as possible. So I can see that scenario. I can see the scenario where they get an offer for Gustafsson that blows them away, and all of a sudden you get something back and you go with Fleury and Wallstedt. So a lot of, for a position that you wouldn't think they don't have a problem with, they don't have an issue with, they still have some questions that need to be answered in net. And you could argue if they had above average or average league wise goaltending this year, we'd be talking about potential first round playoffs next week.
Yeah, and I mean, there's arguments to be had for all of the options for the goaltending tandems, but I don't know. Am I crazy for just sitting here and flat out assuming that the contract's there for Fleury if he wants it, and I don't see him going anywhere else with his talk about importance of family and his family seemingly loving it in Minnesota. Like, he's pretty much either going to be with the Wild next year or he's going to find a way to wedge himself into some kind of position with the team.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a large percentage chance that if he does come back, it'll be Minnesota. So he doesn't want to move his family again. The kids are all entrenched in sports. Like, he's moved the last 3 or 4 years from Chicago to Vegas back here.
But do you see a world where he says, I want to come back, and the Wild say no?
It's hard for me to imagine that. I think they're like Bill Guerin and them are on board with him. It'll be a 1-year contract regardless. Yep. So I think, that they've loved having him around. And even if he's not in a playing standpoint, I think they'll try to keep him involved in the organization, whether it's roving goalie instructor or whatever you want to call it. But I watching Fleury this year, like, it feels like he still has a lot of energy left in him. He still has that passion for the game. And this is beyond the prank wars he's doing, which he do forever, no matter what happens. He'll be like 55 years old and doing that.
But I mean, there's got to be different HR implications if he's working in the front office and he starts pranking guys.
Yeah, we don't want to get into HR issues with the Minnesota Wild at this point in the podcast. So
no, we do, but we can't.
But yes, I think that he's earned the right to decide what he wants to do, and I think the Wild would be very open to bring him back for another year. It just a ripple effect on what you only have 2 goalies in net, right? So you're not going to keep all 3 all year. So you're going to have to decide. That'll have an impact on Wallstedt and potentially will have an impact on Gustafsson in the summer.
Definitely. Well, with that, might as well stop dragging this out. Let's kick it over to this week's interview with former Gopher, NHL rookie Logan Cooley. This interview with Logan Cooley is brought to you by our friends at Waggle Golf. Waggle Golf believes what you wear on the course should reflect your individuality, who you are, where you're from, your hobbies, interests, and passions, all the stuff that makes you, well, you. That's why every design is inspired by the desire to create a piece of apparel that strikes a chord when you see it, that makes you say, wow, that was made for me. Because in a lot of ways, it was. Ready to get your waggle on? Go to getyourwaggleon.com and use promo code SP10 to take 10% off the entire order. Pleased to be joined by one of us by way of flipping his college commitment from Notre Dame to your University of Minnesota Golden Gophers, now wrapping up his rookie season in one of the more highly coveted retirement locations for the Minnesota Snowbirds, Logan Cooley. Thanks for jumping on with us, Logan.
Yep, thank you guys for having me.
Of course. And we open with this, and Jimmy struggled with this one a little bit, so we'll see how you do. But Rorschach test. What do you see when you look at the Minnesota Wild logo?
Yeah, I mean, I think my dad kind of told me about it earlier on when I was little. I know you could see like the outline with like the trees, and I think there might be like the sun or something in there a little bit. But yeah, I don't know too much about it, but I know there's like if you really look at it, there's like the outline of the trees, and yeah, but it's a pretty cool logo.
Like as you can tell, like the pod is Fellowship at the Rink, so it's a playoff of the Lord of the Rings thing. And I was curious, like, I don't know if you're into Lord of the Rings or if you have like kind of a nerd fandom that you kind of follow, like whether it's Harry Potter, Lord of the Rings, like some sort of book type or movie series that's all you're all into.
Honestly, no, I wasn't too big into like Harry Potter or Lord of the Rings or anything like that. So. No books either. I left that at school, so haven't carried that on with me here. But yeah, I mean, I think just any little shows on Netflix like Outer Banks, little things like that is something that I like to watch.
I'm sure video games too are a big part of it, right? Like you guys can keep in touch with guys on video games and stuff.
Yeah, for sure. Always playing, some Xbox here and there, especially on days off. Usually just resting, so get on with some of the guys back home, and have a good time on there.
I know you grew up in the Pittsburgh area. I know we talked about this before, but I think people would be surprised that you were a big Ovi fan growing up. And just how did that just start overall? Because I think that'd be you'd be kind of like a hated guy there wearing Ovi stuff around the area.
Yeah, honestly, I don't know exactly, the exact moment or, that I really became, a big fan of his, but I always just liked the Caps, just the way they played. And, obviously they were really good. It was always them in Pittsburgh and, the second round going at it. And, I love just, having a little rival with, other family members or family friend type things. So it was always a rowdy when it came around the playoff time. And, 2018, I always say was a good year for me and the Caps.
Did you ever get a chance to interact with them this year at any of the games? Like, I know a big thing is like trading sticks or like asking for sticks. I wasn't sure if you had the confidence to do that in year one.
Yeah. I got a stick from him, which was pretty cool. It's, back in AZ right now, I got it signed. And, that was obviously pretty special to, play against him. And, you're a little bit starstruck seeing him out on the ice. And, but yeah, it was, a pretty cool moment. And, got a stick from him and signed and something that, I'll have forever.
How does that work? Do you like ask through like the equipment guys or you go up them yourself, or how does that kind of process work when you try to secure it?
Yeah, I think it's usually between, the equipment managers and, our assistant coach was at the Capitals for a while too. And I think he kind of, asked him and, I was fortunate enough to get one. So, it was nice of him to do that. And, like I said, someone that, I'll have forever.
How do you feel about your first year? Sorry about that, Scott. How do you feel about your first year?
Yeah, I think early on, obviously, I went through some struggles as expected, your first year in the league. But, the back half, I, felt like I've, found my game a little more, still trying to find ways to, really produce in this league and, have success. So I think, each game you learn a little more and, try to just learn from guys on the team and, to try to help your game.
And I mean, Sidney Crosby, I know you don't care for him too much, but he spent his first couple of years living with Mario Lemieux. You decided to one-up him and move in with Michael Grabner and family. What is it like being able to live with an NHLer and get to at least pick little snippets up from him as you go into your rookie season?
Yeah, it was awesome. I think, early on when I was going through those struggles, the whole family was, super supportive and especially, obviously Michael just telling me he's went through the same things and, he's been traded, bought out, kind of been through everything. So he's, a guy that, I really looked up to and, like I said, he was super supportive of me and just trying to help me get through those tough times. He always, kind of said that, it doesn't last forever and you'll get out of it. So just trying to stay with it and just learn any little thing you can from, a guy that, has played whatever 500 or plus years in the league and kind of been through it all. So it was definitely, super awesome that I had the chance to, kind of learn from a guy like him. And, it was, really helpful.
Yeah. And
you had those kids too, like you had to, played around with and stuff like that. I'm sure that kept things light for you after a rough game, going back and seeing those guys. They probably wanted to play video games or hang out with you.
Yeah, definitely. They're all three unbelievable kids. And, like you said, if you're a tough game or, anything, just they always brighten up your day and, would always make it a little bit easier. So it was super nice to, be around them and they made you still feel like a little kid. So it was, definitely a fun time.
Is there a game or anything that you like play with the kids where you cannot beat them?
I don't know. I don't think there's any that, I think the older one, Aiden, was big into Fortnite and, the younger one, they call him Benji, is always playing with his monster trucks and little things like that. So it's, it wasn't a ton of video games, honestly, just more, hanging out, playing with each other and, little things like that. It kept it light and it was fun.
What was the biggest surprise about the NHL in your first year? Thing that you always assumed what it was like, and then what might have, caught you by surprise a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, I think Obviously I talk about this a lot, the speed of the game and just how fast it is. You always realize, or you always see how, quick it looks on TV, but you never really know until, you're actually in it. So just the speed of the game and, how fast it is, how quick you need to make plays. And, another big thing I think is the travel too. Not a lot of people realize how much you're, traveling, you're, staying in 8 different hotels on a road trip, and then you get back to say Arizona, and you have a day off and play the next day. So it's a tough schedule. You need to take care of your body and make sure it's ready to go each and every night.
Yeah, let's talk about that preseason play, the highlight reel that everyone talked about. Is that something where you had that premeditated going in, or did you just black out, mash the buttons, and things worked out?
Yeah, I think it's more of a blackout type thing, but yeah, I mean, if I could draw that up every night, I think I would. But I think it's just instincts. Just trying to read the play and take the best play that's going to help you make a play or score a goal. So that was a pretty special one. I wish it was in the regular season, but the whole experience of just going to Australia and playing hockey over there, I never thought I'd be doing that, and as an NHLer too. So that was definitely special. That was kind of almost like a welcome into the NHL, just being around the guys, and playing against LA too was pretty special.
I know I was around you around October, around Halloween, and you were kind of laughing, saying you wish you were back for the Halloween parties on campus and stuff like that. What weekends or what parts of the year you kind of really miss kind of college? Maybe the Frozen Fours this weekend, or what kind of times you're hey, I miss being back at the U?
Yeah, I mean, I think just my whole experience, at the U was unbelievable, and I wouldn't change it for the world. That was, in my opinion, it's the best spot to play college hockey, and just the team we had too was such a special group, and unbelievable guys and players on that team, and our staff was unreal too, and it really helped me kind of make the next step to the next level. And I think just obviously having a sweep or on the weekend, and then just hanging out with the guys, enjoying the weekend, and there's nothing like beating Wisconsin, sweeping them, or a team like North Dakota, then going out to hang out. So it's pretty cool, and something I'll remember forever.
You were there as a fan too at Mariucci this year for a game. What's that experience like of being a fan at one of those games, watching some guys you played with play this year?
Yeah, it was different. Felt a little weird. It made me want to get out there a little bit and help the guys. But yeah, that rink is always has an unbelievable atmosphere, and there's nothing like putting on that Minnesota jersey and going out competing and in front of those fans in that student section. And it still gives me chills thinking about it. And when you come out on the ice and it's rocking, there's no better feeling than that.
And this year, talk about your inception into the league. What was it like seeing a guy like the second coming of Doan come in and just light up the entire arena this year?
Yeah, he's actually my roommate right now, so I can't say too much. Can't pump his tires too much, but yeah, it's cool. I played against him when he was at the Steel, and some World Junior camps, little things like that. And obviously he's a great guy to be around, and he's playing well for us. And yeah, I mean that whole story of his dad and what he's done for Arizona, it's pretty special.
You have perspective, having been obviously a young talented forward coming into the league, and people are asking about the Calder Trophy debate, whether it's you, it's Faber, it's Bedard. Where do you kind of fall on that? Especially when it comes to Brock and Connor, two different guys, two different positions, adjusting to the NHL.
Yeah, I mean, I think each media person or whatnot is going to have their own saying on who should have won it, and it's tough. There's it's obviously a great rookie class, and a ton of guys that are having really good years, and it's obviously Brock is to be honest, I didn't know he had that offensive in him, but yeah, I always knew he was a great shutdown guy, great defensive player, and it's pretty cool to see him have success with that YO team, and obviously Bedard's a heck of a player too. So it's a great rookie class. It's, fun to go up and compete against, the top, rookies in the league, and not only the rookies, just, guys like McDavid, McKinnon. It's always fun to go against the best and, compete against them.
Obviously, Snuggerud made his decision to stay. I know you're close with him. Just what was that like, kind of helping him? I know Brock said he talked to him on the phone. I'm sure you talked to him quite a bit. Like, how much did you help, or like, what was that like to kind of help him through that?
Yeah, I talked to him, a decent amount. Just try to tell him what, the NHL life is like, and it's a grind. You're basically playing every other day and traveling a ton, and so just told him that, whenever you think you're the most ready to be successful and, help the Blues win and, just take your career to the next step. So I think, for him, he thought, going back is going to be the best decision, and, it's on him. And I think, he's going to obviously strive this year and, continue to get better, and then, be ready to, help that Blues take the next step.
Take me through it. You're planning on going to Notre Dame. You sit down in the locker room. Jimmy Snuggerud puts his arm around you. What's the sales pitch? How does he talk you into being a Gopher?
Yeah, I mean, I think I committed to Notre Dame when I was 14 years old. So, obviously at that time you're super young. You're still in whatever, not even high school yet. So you see the gold helmets and, you think that's the spot you want to be. But obviously as you get older, you kind of realize, what you think is best for you. And at that time I thought, what's best for me is to, kind of change routes. And, obviously I knew Nyes at the time, Faber, Chesley was going there, Snuggerud, and, I knew we were going to have a special team. And, obviously I knew the coaching staff at Minnesota was unbelievable. And, I thought they were going to, help me not only become a better player, but, person also. And, obviously when you're coming to school, you want to win that national championship. And, we had a good run, came up short, but, that was the spot where, I thought was best for me. And, I thought it was overall.
I know your mom wanted you to go to Penn State, I thought, is what she said. So was it hard to kind of tell her to break her heart a little bit and say, I'm leaving town a little for a while?
Yeah. Obviously I, went around a couple schools, kind of looked around, and, she liked me close to home, so I can't blame her. But, I knew that going to Minnesota was going to give me the best chance to, become a better player and, make a run at that national championship.
Nice. And there was, rumors, and this is when Gopher fans will always get up in arms. It sounded like it was kind of down to Minnesota or North Dakota when you were making your decision. How close were you to going to North Dakota? And how do you say no to all those cool green lights and the cryo chambers and stuff that they got up there?
Yeah, it was super tough. It was, Penn State, Minnesota, and, North Dakota were kind of my final three. And, I went back and forth for a while. It's, obviously three unbelievable schools and, really good atmospheres at all three of them. So, I think just for me, when it came down to, guys I knew on the team, Snuggerud, Nyes, Faber, guys that, I was familiar with, I had the chance to, talk to them for a while. And they kind of just told me about the program and, how it's helped them. And so, I haven't really knew, a ton of guys at North Dakota too. So I didn't, know too much about it. You just see the rink and see the atmosphere and stuff. But, for me, it was, what I was most comfortable with. And at that time, I thought it was Minnesota.
When was the moment you realized that line you had with Nyes and Snuggerud was going to be something special? Was it like the first time they put you together? Was it like one of the early games you guys had? Or when did you kind of tell that was going to be something different?
Yeah, I think for me and Snuggy, we, played with each other 2 years before coming to that. So we knew we were, had a good chemistry and kind of knew where each other were on the ice. So, and obviously when they put Nyes with us, it, kind of just clicked right away. I believe it was, in practice, it just, it felt right. It felt like, we were always making plays, always knew where each other were. And, from there, I think we kind of took off and, we just had fun too. I think that's an important part is just, having fun on the ice, doing what you love and, just trying to enjoy it and have fun.
And speaking of Matty Nyes, he actually had a question he wanted us to ask you on here.
Gosh.
What SPF do you use?
What SPF do you use?
Sunscreen.
That's, I mean, you should go to class.
Oh, wait, you said sunscreen.
Oh my gosh. Did he say that to you, or did you make that up?
Does it matter?
Maybe not. Yeah. I don't know. That was kind of an inside joke that went a little viral. I didn't think it was going to get that big, but yeah, it was funny. That was, right around the Frozen Four, and that whole experience was just, a fun time in Tampa.
How would you describe the difference of like playing a Frozen Four versus like a World Juniors or NHL or just regular season game, like the Frozen Four atmosphere and what that's like? How would you describe it?
Yeah, that was one of the, cooler experience that, I've had playing hockey. Playing World Juniors is, obviously pretty special, just representing your country, the big lights, and obviously the NHL now it's cool. You're playing in front of some pretty nice rinks and some pretty unbelievable fans too. But for me, there's nothing like that Frozen Four experience of, just, getting your way to, you got to win that first game, then you get the chance to play in the national championship. And, we had a great showing of Gopher fans there too. And, unfortunately we kind of let them down a little bit, but yeah, it would have been a lot better talking about it if we would have won that. But yeah, it's tough to, even still to this day, just, that whole experience just, it eats at you a little bit of, losing that game. But overall, just a great showing, and definitely one of my favorite times playing hockey.
I think the guys were mentioning like after the plane ride home, like the day after, something like that, like a lot of you guys got together at the hockey house, just hung out and like grilled out and like played cornhole or whatever like that. Like, how would you put that emotions in perspective of what that was like? You probably knew Brock was going. Obviously, Matt was leaving. What was those emotions like for you guys that day?
Yeah, it was tough. I think, the whole plane ride home, it was pretty much silent though, no noise. And obviously you get in late on the bus, and the next day you just, hoping it was just a dream that, we lost that game. But yeah, it was tough. It was obviously nice to, just be around the guys a little more. And, like you said, you saw Brock sign the next day. Then I remember just being around when Nyes was, on the phone with his agent and, thinking about signing. So it's never easy to, you play with guys for a year, then, you see them go. It's never easy, and especially after losing too, which made it a lot tougher.
Can you?
I remember you saying at the Frozen Four, I asked about like the NHL. You're like, hey, this is where you can still be a kid here, and like there, it's like be a pro, like it's your job, like it's a lot to decision to ask of a guy who's like 18 years old to make that kind of decision. Like, is that something where you went back and forth an awful lot going towards the course of that summer?
Yeah, for sure. I went, back and forth with a lot of things, and at one point you're gonna have to, make that jump anyway. So I thought, for me, it's just, I talked to a guy like Clayton Keller for, a good bit of the summer, just trying to learn as much as I can from him. And, he kind of told me what to, expect, which, was a big help for me. But, like I said, it was, you're 18, 19 years old coming in when, you're playing a line with, a guy that's 31 years old, and it's different. It's definitely a, kind of a unique experience, but it's also guys have, welcomed me in so nicely and, really helped that transition, a lot easier.
Knowing what you know now, and you played the NHL for a year, like you've obviously shown you can produce at that level. Like, would you have done the same decision again if you had to go back?
Yeah, that's that's a tough one. I think what makes it the toughest is, just losing that final game and not having a chance to, win again, win the national championship. That's the thing that, kind of, like I keep saying, eats at me the most and is the toughest to, kind of leave. I think, going back and forth last summer, that was, obviously I wanted to play in the NHL, and, I felt like I was ready, but, at the same time, I was, thinking about that loss and how close we were, and, what we could have possibly done again, or what we could do differently next year. So it was tough, but I'd say that's the biggest thing that went into my decision.
And looking at, probably a pretty cool experience being able to go up onto the stage with Matty Nyes for the Hobie ceremony. But Fantilli winning that, all the rivalry against Michigan that year. I'm sure there's been, Canada, US, whatever. Like, is there at all like an ongoing like camaraderie or rivalry or both that you guys have? Like, if you play Columbus, do you like stop and talk to him, or is there any animosity there?
Oh, I mean, I don't think so. Obviously, like I said before, it's fun to go against, other, top rookies in the league and just compete against them. I think there's always a little rival between, top players and guys that have played against each other for a while or so. But yeah, I mean, there's obviously a little something there, and it was always fun when you had the chance to beat Michigan, and but yeah, like I keep saying, it's fun going against top rookies and getting the best out of each other and coming out on top.
What's the weirdest thing you've signed as an NHL player? Is that fan fest with you? There's a lot of things that people come up with. I have no idea where they came from.
You sign a baby yet?
What's that?
Did you sign a baby yet?
Not yet. Yeah, I mean, I think just like an arm or a forehead. They give you a permanent marker and ask you to sign the forehead, and you look over at the mom and they're just saying no. So, but yeah, I mean, I'd just say like a body part or something like that, but nothing too crazy yet.
Have you kept the Chipotle like kind of sponsorship in the NHL? I saw Brock is getting some Chipotle love, I think now, for like some advertising kind of thing.
Yeah, it was. I think for me, it was more of a just college type thing. Obviously that was pretty fun last year. Just taking the guys at Chipotle and getting them some free meals, and in college you're not going anywhere too special, so it's nice when you could get a free meal.
So what's the new palette then? Like, where is Logan Cooley in the NHL going out for food?
Yeah, I mean, I think just the guys that that have been in the league for a while just usually ask if you want to go out, and they find the good spots. I'm not too picky with the big spots around these cities, so they know where to go, and you kind of just follow them and get a pretty good meal out of it.
What did you have to do for your rookie dinner? Did you do a skit? Did you do a joke, or did you do something else?
Yeah, you just have to kind of tell a joke or chirp one of the guys on the team. But overall, it's fun. It really kind of brings you together as a team, and you really feel welcomed after that. And but yeah, we had ours in Boston, and it was pretty cool, and happy to get that over with and get that dinner paid.
Did you do a joke, or which one did you do? Which one did you pick for your?
Yeah, I honestly don't even remember too much. I think you just tell a joke or chirp someone, or something just cheesy, and then all the guys go crazy. Which, like I said, it really felt like it kind of brought you and made you feel like one of them, especially a new guy coming into the league. So, yeah, it was nice, and like I said, happy to get that over.
Quick revert to Gophers before we come up on wrapping up here, but I appreciate you starting the pipeline from Pittsburgh to the Gophers. And I know Pittsburgh, I mean, it's a big area, so maybe you haven't heard of this guy, but familiar at all with a kid named LJ Mooney? Like, any kind of scouting report you can give us on this guy?
Yeah, he's a guy that I skate with, in the summer, and just kind of wows you every time you're on the ice with them, and a guy that I think Gopher fans are gonna like to watch here pretty soon. He's he'll bring you out of your seat, and obviously he's up with the 18s now at the program, and just killing it there, and I can't wait to see him wearing that Minnesota jersey, and maybe see if he takes on 92 there, but yeah, we'll see. But happy for him, and happy he made that decision, and it's definitely the right spot to be.
Who's the guy to beat at the alumni golf tournament this summer when you come back to the Gophers thing?
Geez, that's a tough one. I don't know. I don't think Nyes is pretty good. I don't know. Maybe Fabes. Maybe I'll like to take on Lacombe. I think that'll be the biggest one.
Hey, we have a golf question we can ask you since you're already there, Scott.
Yeah, let's get into it. And I mean, you're familiar with these guys, Logan. Waggle golf question that we ask everybody at the end of the show. Getyourwaggleon.com, promo code SP10 if you want to take 10% off the order. Before we even get into the typical question, I got to ask you, what was the inspiration behind the hat design you threw out there?
Yeah, I think, for me, my whole family's kind of, love the Irish, and, we're big into that. So I thought it'd be pretty cool to, I'm a big McGregor fan too, and he always has that, Irish flag around. And, I thought the shamrock and, the Irish colors there would go good together. And, I haven't really seen, kind of a golf hat like that. So it's pretty cool. And obviously what Waggle was doing there, it's pretty special. And, obviously their clothes are, wear them every time I golf, and, wear a hat too. So it's an unbelievable brand, and, happy I got to do something with them.
So when you're wearing your Waggle gear, if you went out on your favorite course, I want you to construct your dream golf foursome. Who are the other three guys that you'd have out there with you? And I don't care if it's people you've played hockey with, athletes in other sports, dead or alive. Just give me the dream golf foursome.
Oh, it's a tough one. I think, obviously a guy I like watched growing up, Ovechkin, would be pretty cool. Maybe Brady, McGregor, and yeah, not bad. I think just guys at at the top of their sports would be pretty cool.
Who'd be in your cart? Who would you pick to ride with?
Probably Ovi. I think I'd get some good chuckles out of that.
I can't even imagine that guy on a golf course.
I'm not sure there'll be too much golfing, but
no.
What would be the course you'd go? What would be the course you'd pick?
Oh, that's a tough one. I don't know. I think, I don't know. Maybe Pebble Beach, something like that would be pretty cool.
God, it's funny. Ovi's the guy that I go to immediately when I see all the people at the Waste Management Open out there in Arizona. I see him being the guy that's going to go and try and dive into a sand trap, just having the best time of his life.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I think after they won the cup, when he was swimming in that waterfall or water fountain, whatever that was. So, yeah, I definitely see him. Exactly.
He's made for Happy Gilmore too, I think. He's made for the sequel.
Oh, my God. If they brought him in, that'd be great.
Good roster. But yeah, thanks so much, Logan, for doing this. Hopefully it's not raining like crazy in Seattle. You can get out there and enjoy your day. But really enjoyed watching this year, catch up with you all season, and looking forward to catch up with you maybe later this summer at the alumni thing here.
Awesome. Sounds good. Thank you guys for having me. I appreciate it.
Another good one, Joe. Logan, obviously opportune timing here with him reflecting on last year's Frozen Four and us being here on the eve of the Frozen Four as this episode releases. But, great kid. Excited to see where the career goes.
Absolutely. And I was really interested to hear about his perspective of having been, so close to winning it last year and how much that still eats away at him, right? That was the hardest part about his decision to leave Minnesota was hey, that's still the back of my mind. I wanted to come back and do, which is why he's happy for Snuggerud to go back. And I know we put him in a tough spot by asking him if he would do it over again, but you could tell there's not say regret, but I think that there's a sense of he understands what the NHL is like now and the grind. And he definitely appreciated the college experience even more being away from it. The bond and the atmosphere and being the man and just, being with the group. So I don't think he made a bad decision by any stretch. I think he's shown he can be a difference maker in the NHL and his career is going to be great. But it does provide an interesting kind of discussion going forward on guys and their decision, to stay or go and how long it takes. And like I said, Faber said he never regretted for a second decision to come back for his junior year. And he turned out to be a hell of a player for the Wild. So, but yeah, I appreciate Logan coming on and spending 20 minutes with us and going over that and getting you teed up for this Frozen Four.
Definitely. And now to the weekly segment brought to you by our good friends at Barrel Theory Beer Company. We've got keyboard warriors, but everyone here with the Frozen Four in line, you're going to be out in St. Paul enjoying all the festivities. If you're on the east side, which I highly recommend, there's a lot of great spots over there that don't get talked about enough. East 7th, we've got Barrel Theory's tap room, of course, just a few blocks away from CHS Field and really just a 15-minute walk from the X. You would be wise to stop in there. They still have Shooter McGavin on tap. That's still what I'm drinking myself via can at incredible movie reference, incredible beer. But if you are going to the games, maybe we'll run into you there. But make sure you check out section 105 for the crowler of the day, or sections 112, 217, and club level 36 if you want to get the delicious Raindrops IPA on tap as well. All right, Joe, this week's Keyboard Warriors came in pretty hot, and we had a little bit more of people tagging in and exposing other people's hot takes, which I'm all for here. Let's just rip the Band-Aid off. Seth Topol, good friend of the show, on Locked On Wild. Any of you that, for whatever reason, aren't already following Seth's content, make sure you go check out Locked On Wild. But what he shared via Daniel Offerdahl, Matt Boldy is horrible. He most definitely needs to be traded. So little talent. So overpaid. Wild certainly won't be a cup contender while he is on the roster. He's so hard to watch, that is, when he's not completely invisible. And Joe, I will add in Daniel's defense, a lot of people would delete the post or cower away. Daniel stood his ground and commented immediately in support of his original comment. So he feels very strongly about this. What say you?
I think he's had one too many Shooter McGavin IPAs, double IPAs there. Like, I respect people's opinions on stuff, and I know there's reasons you can, nag on Boldy in some games and instances. There's some growth he still needs to have as a player, but you simply don't find those guys very often. They rarely had top 10 picks of this organization, and he's one of them. And no one was complaining last year when he was the hottest player in hockey down the stretch and helped lift him to the playoffs when Kirill Kaprizov went out, did they? On a team that lacks scoring depth around their whole lineup, you want to trade Matt Boldy, the one of the three guys on this team that could score like 30 goals in a season. So, there have been some issues this year, like, some flybys in overtime or just some decision making he's had. But, he's a player that, if he's at his best, is one of the best, more dynamic wingers around. And he could very well make a case to go on the Olympic team in a couple of years. So he has some things still to prove and it's more consistency in his game. But if you're the Minnesota Wild and you consider trading Matt Boldy, you're going to rebuild and rebuild fast.
Yeah, and I mean, to lightly take Daniel's side for a second, there are nights where he is not Matt Boldy that we're talking about. Yeah. There are nights where he's invisible that we're all disappointed in him too. But that's what you're going to get with young players. There's going to be inconsistencies, and on the nights that he's on, he is on. And to talk about whether he's overpaid or not, honestly, premature regardless. Like, even if he torched this year, you can't just all of a sudden say this is a great contract. It's early. It's a 7x7. Like, we need to see what the long haul is for this and where he fits into the lineup once we come out of the cap hell, as it's been termed. I think there's still room for development for this guy, clearly, but to lead with Matt Boldy is horrible and he most definitely needs to be traded is just outlandish. I don't know how else to phrase it.
No, and I appreciate the comments and all that stuff like that too, but it just, there are some reasonable and unreasonable comments where when teams are in a bad way or miss the playoffs, you can ship everybody else off the roster if you're a fantasy GM, but yeah, it's just not the way it works. And I think it's giving up on Matt Boldy right now if you're the Minnesota Wild, which this is not the Minnesota Wild. Don't think this, right? They don't feel this way at all. They wouldn't have given him 7x7 and Bill Guerin and calling him a cornerstone of the franchise a year ago. That hasn't changed in their mindset. Are they happy with every game he plays? No. Do they think he can play a little tougher game around the dirty areas and find ways to be successful in the playoffs that he hasn't been yet? Absolutely. He got some tough love from Guerin last year at the exit meeting, so there's room for growth there, but there are not many ways you can find guys like him and can afford guys like him, regardless of the cap space. So think they should appreciate the little things he does and see how he can grow.
We're going to stick on the trade theme here pretty much throughout this this Keyboard Warriors segment. Mateo, who gives us a screenshot, which, Mateo, I'll give it to you this time. In the future, don't be a coward. You got to tag them in. You got to deal with the repercussions if they see that you brought them into this. But Mateo says, as a caption on the screen grab, I know it's bait, but there are certainly Wild fans that agree with this. And what he screen grabbed from John Puck, phenomenal name, probably real. Kirill Kaprizov is currently 9th in NHL points per game this season. Again, and he's referencing his own quoted post beneath, it would be wise for Minnesota to listen to offers for him as soon as next season. And the idea in his previous post that he quoted was essentially, hey, we might not be able to get this guy to stay once it's time to re-sign him. Do we trade him high right now, get whatever assets we need, kind of settle this all out before the cap hell levels out and have our new direction set?
Well, I do understand the scenario of worrying that he won't be here beyond the next couple of years. Like, I do understand there's a legitimate worry from fans that, hey, we have this special talent here and the best player in franchise history already in my mind, and worry about him staying. But I do know the old adage is if you don't get, you lose the best player in a trade, you lose the trade, right? Any trade that involves Kirill Kaprizov, the Wild are probably going to lose. Okay. Just quite frankly, like, he's a bona fide proven star, like a top 12 player in the game. And, I can see if there are some discussions and like there's some more information out there, like, hey, he's made it clear, like some guys like Kachuk, right? And in Calgary, like, said, hey, I'm not going to come back. I'm going to, if he makes it clear to Minnesota, like, hey, I'm going to ride this one out and I want to go to a bigger market, I want to go here, then that changes that conversation. And I'm more open to believing, like this person said, that you should consider moving him. But
yeah,
for all intents and purposes, now they believe that he wants to stay. They made him an alternative captain, another sign that they want him to have ownership in this team, which he has taken. So if you're on that path of want to build around him, because once you lose Kirill Kaprizov and you have this Matt Boldy guy you want to trade because you think he's horrible, like, what kind of team are you going to have to really build around? Like, how many, guys are going to get back that are going to be proven players that you think you can just pencil in? And with that cap space that you get, are you think get Leon Draisaitl to sign with the Minnesota Wild in a couple of years? You think any of these guys that are big time free agents are going to be like, well, Kaprizov's gone, let me see if I can be the number one guy here and have no help. So he's your biggest selling point. He's the kind of the flagship, right? Not the face of your franchise, but the best player in your franchise. So, probably a reason why a lot of people buy tickets to go to the X is to watch him play. So when you have that guy, you might as well do everything you can to keep him. There's only count on two hands how many guys that are in the league that are like him.
Yeah, and I empathize. I do with Mr. John Puck's stance, because we've seen it historically, right? You look at Russians stereotypically being the ones that, hey, they want to live somewhere cool like New York or be on the beach in Florida, get out to LA. And we've seen it happen time and time again where the player, gets to the expiration of their deal, gone. But there's definitely a different element for me here with the way that the Wild have stocked the cupboard with some Russian talent. They brought Firstov back after defecting to the KHL. They have Marat Huznadinov. We've got Danila Yurov on the way within the next year. I think that already goes a long way in him having interest in staying. Like, these are guys that are so outspokenly excited about playing with him. It's something where he's kind of going to be the dad of this team in a couple of years. And Does that mean that he's going to stay? No. There's always the risk that you're going to take, whether he's not happy with the direction of the team or his best friend Matt Zuccarello retires and he doesn't have that holding him down. Like, you can have this argument all day, but with the fans' love for Kaprizov, like, you nailed it, Joe. People would be outraged if he was traded. So if you're going to do that, it needs to be because you can firmly say, he won't commit to us. He won't say he's going to stay. So it's really the summer before his deal expires is when this is all going to come to head. He's either going to extend there or, yeah, you know what? I'm with you, John Puck. Maybe you do have to explore potential trades if there is the risk that he's not going to stay. So this one's not nearly as outlandish as the Boldy take, just as far as how it's constructed. But again, I'm not even exploring these waters right now. This is something that probably comes next summer.
Yeah, next summer, and again, it's all about context, right? If you're Bill Guerin, and you have a talk with Kaprizov, he's like, "Listen, I want to win. Like, I want to go somewhere that I can win. I don't truly believe I love it here. I love the teammates, but I don't know if I can do that." And want to sign it because they want to sign him for like a long-term deal, right? They're going to want to sign him for.
It's going to be a big ticket. It's going to be.
Yeah, he'll write his own price, right? So like, if I'm Kaprizov and I want to commit that long to a lot of my career, I want to know where the direction of the team is going. I want to see that I would be able to have a chance at some point to compete for a Stanley Cup. So,
yep.
Absolutely, context matters in this situation. We're still a little ways from that being a hot button issue as far as will you stay or will you go, or is trade even a possible discussion? But yes. I think that's something that anytime you're talking about the Minnesota Wild, Kirill Kaprizov will be a number one hot button discussion.
Last one here. We've got Joey with a hot take, self-proclaimed. Despite there being a lot of guys locked up with contracts next year, GMBG finds a way to move one or two of them. I think if we've seen anything historically, it's that if Bill Guerin signs a guy, it's because he has intent for them to stay. That doesn't mean that he doesn't call out his mistakes and make changes. Let's pose it to you this way, Joe. Who is the most tradable of the players on the roster that, again, isn't of the Boldy, Faber, Kaprizov ilk?
You mean of the guys that they signed this past fall, or just in general? Past
fall, guys that are still under contract that would be reasonable to move, free up space or free up roster spots, whatever your goal is. But yeah, I'm guessing this hinges primarily around the three that were signed this year in Mats Zuccarello, Moose, that's right, Marcus Foligno, Ryan Hartman, and you can even throw Freddie Gaudreau into the mix.
Yeah, it's a tough one. I think, Foligno will be coming off of other core surgery this summer. Zuccarello is getting a little older, obviously, in that respect. I mean, he could be interested on a short-term deal because he only has a couple of years left on his contract. On defense, Middleton could be a guy that could get moved if you consider, get interest from other teams. Ryan Hartman of those three probably is the most tradable just because he's shown the ability to play, top six center. He can play the wing. If he's the Ryan Hartman of 2 years ago, I think he's definitely, more movable. I've talked to some teams who were hoping he would have been a free agent this summer, that they would have kind of explored looking at him. So, yeah, but to say that they're going to be able to, or going to trade them next year, I just don't see Guerin double tracking on his idea of signing these guys a year in advance and all of a sudden being like, I made a mistake. It's just unless something goes kind of sideways. But
well, and what about the other option of a lot of fans seem to think that a buyout or a trade could occur for either Marcus Johansson or John Merrill? Do you see anything happening with either of those players, or are they on the roster next year?
Yes. I mean, I think the idea of a Johansson buyout could make sense in terms of it wouldn't cost you a lot of money, and if you wanted to free up a spot and find somebody you could fill there. I do also know that there's no more motivated of a player than Marcus Johansson in a contract year. So next year will be that year.
This is true. That is the most valuable Marcus Johansson you're going to get.
So I guess if you're playing the percentages on that, obviously if you're going to watch you buy him out or sell him, and then all of a sudden he scores 20 goals next year, right? That's just the way it works out. But I think probably on the legs, if you wanted to buy him out, then that would be an option. I don't know if they're going to do that. I don't know if inside information that they're going to plan to do it, but that is a way if you wanted to create some top 6 space or spot in the roster, if you have somebody that could fill that in on a bargain in free agency, which is no guarantee necessarily. But they definitely free up some spots for next year with, Ogren's made his pro AHL debut recently with Iowa. You'll have, Yurov coming over, most likely. You'll have.
Pause on that. Like, Yurov's most likely coming over, you think?
I think so. Like, I don't know that for sure, and it's not set in stone, but I think they've said this past year that they're optimistic about it. So unless that changes
then someone's got to move. Like, just doing basic math, right? There's got to be a spot for him in the top 9. You're not playing Yurov on the 4th line, and I don't think he's coming if the plan is for him to be in Iowa.
Yeah. No, I think the plan is for guys like him and Ogren to compete for the team and get Riley Height.
Okay.
Who'll be given every chance to make the team too. So, you're losing a couple of guys this year with, what's the 4th line right now? Is it like Lucchini, Luteri, and Mason Shaw?
Yep.
None of them are guaranteed to be on the roster, the big team roster next year. 3rd line is Goudreau, Kuznetsov, and Hartman, right? And so you have to create some space, and the guys will have to move down the lineup since Foligno will be back as well. So, but I think those 3 guys you would circle as guys that are going to compete for a spot next year, which is Ogren, Yurov if he comes, and Riley Height, who all by all stretch of imagination could be, a very big story in training camp.
For sure. It sounds like what I'm hearing is what we really need for a miracle is for Dean Evison to be hired as a head coach for another team. And we're probably getting a pretty hefty return for Freddie Gaudreau, are we not?
Yeah, that's the biggest joke around, right? But and Freddie, like, obviously we've hit on him a lot this year. It's been a rough year for him. And even Hines said today, I asked him, like, has he been banged up? He's like, he's been pretty much banged up all year. And he won't use that as an excuse, no doubt. And they could use more from him. But sometimes that gets lost in the discussion on players and their struggles of, like, what is he battling through? Like, does he have a major core issue? Does he have a shoulder issue? Or maybe creates him can't be producing. And we'll find out that more probably in a week or so when the exit meetings are happening, because Freddie just says that's hockey. Well, people are playing through it. But before you bury a guy, also know what else might be going on. But clearly, Freddie hasn't been the same player as he was in previous seasons. This is why they signed him to a 5-year deal last spring.
Awesome. Well, another very hot segment of Keyboard Warriors, again, brought to you by our good friends at Barrel Theory Beer Company. Please support them either in Taproom or at the X this week. Joe, close it out. Anything we want to talk about? Recent articles, upcoming articles, anything you're working on?
I just posted, which will be a Tuesday, kind of fun behind the scenes on the Marc-Andre Fleury and Brandon Duhaime prank wars that apparently are over now, since Duhaime waved his white flag after his car was put on cinder blocks and tires were tied to in a chain through the fence and everything. So a lot of fun back and forth, including some co-conspirators in the wild that helped him out to get there. Our insider every Monday, this last Monday, I talked to Alex Goligoski, quote unquote, one of us, about his plans and how much he thinks about his future beyond hockey. And could he have played his last game in the NHL? We don't know. And he's talked about his future and what his plans are and what he weighs in going into that. We will have Frozen Four coverage this weekend. I will be there locked in, whether it's BU or other teams. So maintained to follow that. And you'll have plenty of season ending wrap-up stuff coming next couple of weeks and analysis on where they go from here. So now's a good time to check out The Athletic, as the playoff coverage for around the league will be coming from all of us. So check us out, give us a chance, and you'll be wanting to know what's going on in the offseason. So we'll be all over it.
Beautiful. Well, if you're new to Fellowship of the Rink and enjoyed the episode, Hitting the subscribe button or leaving a 5-star review helps us more than you know. If video is more your thing, please subscribe to our YouTube channel, The Soda Pod, where we post full podcast recordings, video clips of the great interviews we have, just like Logan Cooley today, beer reviews, and even prospect highlight reels compiled by the infamous Spoked Z, who will be on site this week, allegedly. As always, we appreciate you tuning in. Nice. For this week's Fellowship of the Rink, you stay classy, State of Hockey.
Thanks for stopping by.
You stay classy.
Thanks for stopping by.
Stay classy.